Picking up a lot of background right now.
I'm certain a part of me was born with a thirst for adventure, and I'm quite spirited. So I'm sure that lends to my curiosity for discovering new places and for questioning why some things are the way they are. But on the other hand, some of that is nurtured, and it's nurtured by people like our leaders, such as Sheikh Mohammed, who always aims for the highest and does things that perhaps before him we never thought we could do. And the same goes with family and friends. They all set great examples, and part of it has been my experience in the UAE for the past almost 30 years. It was probably 7 years ago before I even thought about the North Pole. And it was going to graduate school, and during my time there, I spent a lot of time thinking about how societies formed and how people interacted within a community, and that was intrinsic to the subject matter that I was studying. So I think the course that I took really shaped my view on the importance of questioning the opinions that we take on board and making sure we agree with them. And I think if I never learned that, I would never have taken a step back to say, hey, there are some boundaries which stop me from facing there are some boundaries that stand in the way of me and a dream of mine, and I would never have thought about alternative solutions or ways around those boundaries. And having taken that course, I think, or undergone that experience at LSE, I was equipped with what I needed to, and 7 years later, face many, many challenges in order to achieve a dream. I think nothing good comes easy, and what's more important than the difficulty or the easiness is that both the ups and the downs are part of the journey. And so the difficulty was intrinsic to the value of the experience to me. So it's definitely difficult. I think more important to that, women in the UAE are coming to realize that to be better, more appropriate mothers, wives, and daughters in a very fast-paced, changing world that we are experiencing here, they need to have their own opinions, and they need to gain experience and set goals outside of just the home, and that these very same goals outside the home lend to how good an example they can be for their own children and their own families. So I think the two go hand in hand. I think there's a tendency to be content a lot easier than perhaps we could be. I think people should aim higher and not be put off by the challenges they face in defining a new reality for themselves and for their children. And these are all positive steps. It's not about breaking with tradition. It's not about rebelling. It's just about understanding how we can be the most we can be in the world that we live in today.
I think my most defining moment has been, it was about 2.5 years ago almost, when I came up with the idea about opening up Soiree, because I got to reconcile my passion for humanitarian work, giving back to my country, and another passion, you know, the promoting of Pakistani designers, which are like very close to my heart. I don't think it was very difficult. I wouldn't use that word. I would use more, it was a lot of perseverance. It was a lot of hard work. And by the grace of God and the mentorship of my family, I've managed to achieve a lot today. I was actually born with ambition. I think it was in my genes, more or less, because my whole family and the generations before that, we've all been very, very strong and very hardworking entrepreneurs. I think women in the UAE have really, really entered the workforce and colleges and universities in a big way. I think it's not just the local women, it's also people like me who've migrated to the UAE and built careers for ourselves. And I think it's very interesting to see that a lot more women are, you know, very dedicated to their family, yes, and also to their ambitions. And it's growing every day. If I had to give one message to the women in the UAE, I think it would be that if you have a dream, you should pursue it with a lot of passion and a lot of perseverance, and it will definitely become a reality for you.
Oh boy. That probably. Cut. Okay.
I've always had a lot of energy, even as a child. You know, I would hide behind our curtain in our house, and the maid would pull the curtain, and I would like, you know, put on a show. So I've always like wanted to perform since I was a little girl, and you know, I didn't know exactly that I was going to end up in filmmaking because my prime, or I would say my first love, was fine arts. So I would do a lot of portraits and paintings, and you know, and a lot of my paintings are storyboards when you put them together. So. But you know, in the painting world, you kind of get lonely because you're always stuck in your room painting for many hours. But with film, I just completely fell in love with the energy, and that you work in a big team of people to produce one product, and that buzz is just irreplaceable. It was more of a scary journey than difficult, because I think difficult is when you know something and you know the kind of difficulties you're going to face. But if you're entering a new industry that doesn't exist, that doesn't have much of an infrastructure like filmmaking, then it becomes, where do I begin? Who do I speak to? Am I going to get this done? So there's more of the fear element, you know, obviously top that with like so many challenges. I think for me, a moment that really that sticks to my mind is the full circle is when I did my first film, and I kind of challenged myself to shoot on 35mm because, you know, at that time no one was doing it, and you know, I was the first one to kind of try shooting on 35, a narrative short film. And that same film was actually banned in the sense that the script was not very you know, they didn't really like it at the authorities because it was a bit too controversial at that time. And the funny thing is, after 2 or 3 years, it came to the same person who tried to stop the film from happening was the same person who actually gave me an award once the film was done. So I thought that was kind of ironic, and you can see the change that happened in the region within a very short span of time. So at least now they're like becoming more open to the idea of filmmaking, because honestly, filmmaking is a reflection of life. You will have your negative and your positive. So UAE youth and our generation, we're really coming up with very unorthodox ideas and businesses that are not your typical kind of line of work. Even like if you want to work, I know of a good friend of mine. She is into Formula One, and she wants to be a car driver, a racer. And then another friend of mine, for instance, you know, she's done everything from skydiving, so she's into adventures. And I'm sure you've heard of the very famous girl who went to the North Pole. So I guess, you know, nothing is impossible. You know, people reach heights in whatever way they define what that height is to them personally. For me, it would be to make a feature film. That would be my personal height. So yeah, I guess things are really opening up, and it's wonderful to see women ministers, judges, and pilots and whatnot. This is to women who are growing up in this region today. Believe me, women out there, you guys are so lucky, especially if you're in the arts and culture field, just because right now people are way more open for ideas, and you could express yourself more freely than what we went through 10 years ago. So if you want to delve into this field, go ahead. You know, there's still some barriers and obstacles that you will face. There's always a way around it. And if you're in the media, you know, it's such a mobile system right now, where if you're a writer or photojournalist or whatever that may be, the internet is such a huge global village for everyone, for Emiratis like me here and like you, I'm sure. So get rid of this fear element and just jump right in.